Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on, sit down, relax, take a load off. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, a #1 iTunes kids and family podcast. We are so very happy to have you here. So excited that you're part of our Reading with Your Kids family. Hey, listen, I have a question. What's the weather like where you are? Is it wonderful sunny like it is here in Boston? Is it cold? Is it wintry where you are? We broadcast all around the world. We have a great guest today. He is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read author. His name is Paul Deanno, and the name of his book is Wild Weather.
This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Jedley's totally interactive Magic Circus. Imagine a show where magic, illusions, comedy, music, and inspiration all come together as one. Imagine a show that has helped over 1 million young people and adults to change the way they approach life. A show that has shown people that being kind and respectful is fun. That show is Jedley's totally interactive Magic Circus, a transformative show that inspires young people to make healthy choices, be kind, and respectful. To find out more, please visit www.jedley.com or call 617-833-7063 today.
Joining us on the line right now from the beautiful Bay Area of San Francisco in California. He is the chief meteorologist for the CBS affiliate in San Francisco. His name is Paul Deanno. He is the author of a fantastic book called Wild Weather. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jed. Very thrilled to be here. Good stuff.
Now, I said that this is a fantastic book, and I'll tell you how I know it's a fantastic book. My wife is a teacher, and as you might guess, we get, the podcast, we get literally, hundreds of books here come to the house from authors who want to come on the show. My wife sees them all. Very few of them get taken away from me before I even have a chance to, really look through them very quickly. Your book was out of my hands and into her book bag to take to her class immediately when it came into the house.
That makes me so happy because my #1 goal for writing this book is to get kids excited about weather and excited about science.
And I love the way you do it too. Right off at right at the start of the book, your characters. One of your characters is asking her mom, "Mom, do you know that a cloud weighs as much as 100 elephants?"
And weather is so big, and the tough thing for me to get it into a book is because we also established that a cloud weighs 2 million pounds. Mm-hmm. But to a 6-year-old preschooler or to an 8-year-old student in elementary school, what does 2 million pounds mean? It's such an abstract number. It's such a big number. That doesn't drive it home. Mm-hmm. So doing a little research, finding out what the average elephant weighs, I think if you take the same scientific fact but break it down into something that a child can relate to, like, whoa, an elephant's big. It weighs as much as 100 elephants. I just think that drives it home, and it's something more memorable for a child and for a young student to take away rather than just some big number that even an adult probably couldn't equate to.
Yeah, I mean, that was, as you were talking about, a child couldn't relate to, 1 million pounds. It's like, I have a hard time relating to that. It's much easier for me to picture 100 elephants.
And the illustrator, Toby, Michael, who put this together, I think did a great job in marrying the words to the pictures because, in my opinion, for a children's book, if you have great words but no pictures, you failed. Mm-hmm. If you have great pictures but not the right words, you failed. I love what he's done to bring some of these words and some of these rhymes to life. Yeah,
fantastic. Now, tell, we're talking a little bit before we started recording about the fact that we have a lot of information at our fingertips. And, so I have this thing on my phone that tells me when it's going to rain, it's going to be sunny, and what to bring, and what do I need to wear, and all that other kind of stuff. Why do you think it's important for kids to have an understanding of weather beyond that immediate fact?
It's a great question, and I have 2 answers for you. The first one is that I think what the information that we get, thrown at us 10,000 times a day answers so much of the question what. But I think what iPhones and smartphones and social media is lacking is the perspective of why. Tell me why this is happening. And I think that's how somebody who is a scientist or is a meteorologist still has value in an information-laden world, is let's give it perspective. Let's explain why this is happening. We hear so much about what's happening, but tell me the processes behind it. And I think that a book like this can help with that. It gets them excited about the weather, but it also begins to explain the whys. And the other part of the equation is that weather is one of those things that regardless of where you are or who you are or how old you are or what you're doing, it's going to have some impact on your day. And I think that if you can empower a child to be able to look up into the sky and know a little bit more about what's going on, you've just made them a better student of the world. I mean, how great is that? They can, did you know that cloud probably weighs 2 million? Like, that's just great to look up and have some answers rather than all questions.
Yeah. And I love, we were talking about different meteorologists. We had a meteorologist at WBZ here in Boston for many years. He was a legend. His name was Don Kent. And one of the things that he used to encourage people to do is just to look up into the sky and to be aware of the clouds, because we're walking around in the weather all the time, and it's amazing how we don't notice things like the clouds and the wind.
It's so true, and I could not agree more. And here's the reason why: is that somebody will ask me, or a child. I'm going to a book reading later today, and I'll probably get asked, how do you know the forecast? And I mean, and the sciencey answer would be, we have satellites and computer models and this and that, and we can look at this. The number one thing that we can do to know about the weather and even what's coming up next with the weather is just looking up. What type of clouds are they? Because thicker clouds usually bring rainfall more efficiently than thinner clouds. What direction are the clouds moving? Is it hazy? Is it not? Tell me more about the wind. Because in a place like Boston where you are, if the wind's coming from the ocean a certain time of year, it's going to be chilly. But if the wind's coming from your west, if it's an offshore wind, it's going to be warm. I mean, you can learn so much just by kind of going outside, taking a deep breath, and looking up. I completely agree.
Yeah. And I think one of the things, too, by getting kids to start thinking about the why is I think that you're helping them prepare for the world and prepare to make decisions for their lives. And I think you're empowering kids too, to just not sit back and let life happen to them, but to go out and explore and to make a difference in their own lives.
Absolutely. I mean, this world is changing at breakneck speed, and kids really, in some instances aren't given the chance to be kids like maybe our generation was not too long ago. I think asking the question why and taking the time to understand what the answer is to that question why is what kind of, I don't want to get too deep here, but what makes humanity. It's what separates us from mindless information is that we're actually curious about what's going on around us. And you've got to spark that curiosity at a young age, because there's stuff flying at you all the time now, whether you're 8 or whether you're 80. So, you've got to fire off that curiosity spark in kids pretty early. And it's my hope that WOW Weather might do that with science and STEM education and weather itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what was it that sparked your imagination and your interest in meteorology?
Great question. And actually, I went to school first for broadcasting. I was a news anchor for a while. And it's kind of interesting that it was one specific event. I was working in Medford, Oregon, which is a small television market. I was fresh out of college. And a huge hailstorm began to hit our viewing area, and back then there was no internet, so people were just calling in saying, hey, these hailstones are like the size of softballs. They're ruining windshields on cars. You need to let people know. And we watched this hailstorm basically envelop the entire viewing area, and we didn't have enough phones to take the calls. And something clicked in my brain, and it's like, some people like sports, some people like this type of news, some people like this type of news, but when that weather event happened, there was not one person who lived in that area who wasn't directly impacted by the weather. And that just stuck out to me. Wow, regardless of who you are or what you're doing, if there's a big weather event going on, that's your day right there.
Mm-hmm.
And that really piqued my interest. And I ended up going back to college for meteorology for about 4 years at night while working during the day. And that was a huge Y in the road. And I am so thankful that hailstorm happened because being a meteorologist is, in my opinion, one of the best professions out there.
And you kind of, I'm hearing, and I'm certainly not an expert, but I'm hearing there are more and more stations who don't have, trained meteorologists. They just have someone who's, reading off a teleprompter or something that they got from a National Weather Service.
It's very simple to have a broadcaster, yes, take a pre-made forecast and look good and sound good just reading the numbers. And if there are TV stations out there or broadcast outlets out there and that's all they want, they will have plenty of qualified candidates. In my opinion, what separates watching a broadcast meteorologist on television or listening on Amazon Echo, there are different ways to get your information now from a broadcast meteorologist. What separates us from just clicking on the weather app on your phone is explaining why it's happening. And rather than just seeing a rain icon on the day for Friday, actually explaining to our viewers, well, you know what? It's going to be a little bit of showers in the morning. Then we're going to get a break for lunchtime. But if you're having a barbecue or an outdoor event Friday night, that's when it's going to pour. Mm-hmm. I think that's the value that having a trained meteorologist gives to a broadcast or gives to a station versus having somebody in the business that's called rip and read. Mm-hmm. Rip and read is good, but I don't think it's where TV stations should be. I think there are enough qualified broadcast meteorologists out there that every station, frankly, should have one or more than one.
Yeah, well, I certainly agree with you. And here in New England, we kind of depend on our meteorologists to help us understand what's going on because things can change, turn around, and the weather's different.
Absolutely. There are certain parts of the country where it literally can be a life-saving endeavor. Oklahoma City, Dallas, Wichita, Kansas, you've got tornadoes. On the East Coast, you've got something every season, whether it be Hurricane Sandy in the summertime to a big snowstorm in the winter. Yeah, weather is something, I think it's maybe the third time I said it impacts everyone. Mm-hmm. That's why I love that my profession gives me the opportunity to go in the classrooms because teachers want somebody to come in and talk weather and talk science, which has kind of opened doors for me. I think it's the funnest thing that I do, even more than being on television, is being able to go into a classroom mm-hmm. and have the opportunity to, have 30 or 60 or 90 kids be pretty focused on me because I'm talking about a cool topic.
Mm-hmm.
Kids seem to dig weather.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember have great memories of taking an earth science class in high school and then again in college and actually sitting down and playing with different maps and trying to do my own kind of weather predictions with the primitive stuff that that was available to me at the time. Are there ways for kids, if a parent and child sit down, they read this book together and they get excited about weather, are there tools that maybe a family can sit down and kind of try to do their own forecasts?
I would strongly suggest, and this is something I'm hoping to do for future books, there are some very rudimentary kind of weather observation charts. We talked earlier about kind of just going outside and observing mm-hmm. and seeing what's going on. Go outside and write down what type of clouds there are. Go outside and talk about the temperature. Go outside and talk about the wind. And you can watch over the course of days or weeks just by looking at your own home observations. Or you can buy a backyard weather kit for $30 or $40 nowadays. Mm-hmm. And, just write down the observations. Wow, did you know that July 26th was the hottest day of the summer? It hit 104. Did you know that January 5th was the day where we got the most rain? Just kind of, it just makes you more aware of what's going on around you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's funny that weather it's such a big part of our lives. I mean, you're mentioning snowstorms. I lived through the blizzard of 78 here in New England and just recently lived through the blizzard of 2015 when we had like 130 inches of snow over the course of a couple of weeks. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's amazing how those moments and those storms kind of, and of course my family in Puerto Rico will never forget Hurricane Maria. Weather has such an important effect on our lives.
It does. And if you talk to somebody, if you talk to almost every meteorologist out there and you ask them what sparked your interest, like you asked me a few minutes ago, typically it's one event.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, hey, I went outside and saw that it was sunny every day, so I really loved weather. No, it's that snowstorm, or it's that tornado, or it's that hurricane. And it just kind of opened your eyes to, wow, this is something powerful. I want to know more about it.
Mm-hmm. Now, what do you have to say? In a minute, I'm going to ask you what kind of questions you get from kids when you visit those classrooms. But I want to know, what do you say to the know-it-all who sits down and you know, the grumpy adult who says, if I was wrong as many times as my meteorologist was wrong, I'd lose my job.
I'll be very frank here in saying that when I first started in broadcast meteorology, that question kind of bothered me because it's like, oh, why are you, I'm not wrong that often. The forecast is mostly right. But now that I've been doing this, gosh, for, 22 years or so, I've learned to almost accept that comment as a badge of honor, because think about how small we are relative to Earth. Mm-hmm. And of course we're going to be wrong from time to time, or some weeks a lot, because we're trying to predict something that's billions of times bigger than us. Mm-hmm. And it just I think it's kind of a reminder. It's a good, humbling experience that, hey, you know what? There's a lot of atmosphere above us. We're trying to kind of stick our thumb up with some satellites and computer models to know exactly what it's going to do at 5 o'clock next Friday when somebody's having an outdoor wedding. Mm-hmm. Bottom line is, it's always going to be an educated guess. Mm-hmm. We're just going to get more educated as time goes on, but that guess part is still going to be there. So I don't mind that at all, because actually sometimes I'll look back at somebody now and say, you know what? That's right. You're an accountant. If you mess up somebody's taxes, you're fired. I mess up the forecast this weekend, I'm probably still working next week.
So tell us, what kind of questions do you get from kids when you visit classrooms?
People love to know what it's like to be on TV. The non-meteorological question is it scary to be on TV? And the answer is absolutely. The first time I did it, I was petrified. But after a couple hundred times, you're better. After a couple thousand times, you feel pretty good. And then after a while, it just becomes fun. I think the separation, the nervousness you feel in your body is actually excitement just being channeled the wrong way. Mm-hmm. So as soon as you can learn how to channel it just into excitement, it just becomes a ton of fun. Mm-hmm. People always say, hey, how do you know what it's going to be tomorrow? Because that's a pretty powerful question. You're like, the weather is what it is today, but I'm telling people on television what it's going to be on Sunday. That's a pretty powerful statement to go on there and say, it's going to be even hotter on Sunday. It's not going to be as hot. It's actually going to snow on Sunday. If you actually sit there and think about it, that's a pretty big boast that we're fairly confident that the weather is going to change or not change 48 hours from now. And there is a wealth of computer information out there. And I think just over time, just living in an area, I'm sure that if you've been in your neighborhood in and around Boston, you probably can tell that a certain type of cloud or a certain type of wind, you kind of know what's coming next if you've been there long enough. Mm-hmm. And there's value to that. Mm-hmm. And of course, everybody always asks, what do you make? And I always say, I make less than the president, but I make more than I did when I worked at McDonald's when I was a kid. So that gives me a pretty wide range.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, you were mentioning earlier that you're working on a new project. Are you able to talk about the new project?
Absolutely. When I did this, it was just something that I dreamed about for so many years of writing. My mom was an English teacher, and writing was always something that I loved in addition to science. And, I have 3 beautiful boys that were absolutely my priority for a very long time. They still are, but I've been able to carve out enough time to write this book. Thankfully, it's been successful enough that it spurred me to want to kind of, while weather is a broad brush look at a lot of things. We talk tornadoes, we talk hurricanes, we talk hail, we talk how many Earths you can fit inside the sun. It's a little bit of a lot of things. My next thought was, let's talk a lot about one thing. Mm-hmm. And I worked in Miami for several years, and I saw the power of what a hurricane or even the threat of a hurricane can do. So the evolution of the Wow Weather series will be specific weather elements or specific geographic locations.
Ooh.
And the next one that I'm going to do it's in illustration now and should be out within a few weeks. Should be out sometime during this hurricane season, is Wow Weather Hurricanes, where obviously the entire book is focused on hurricanes. The one I'm going to do after that I've already started taking some notes on is Wow Weather California. Let's talk about some of the specific weather elements and weather things and awesome weather facts that go into the state of California, including the fact that the world's hottest temperature happened in California back in 1913. Death Valley hit 134 degrees. So that's kind of a unique thing that not only America, but the state of California is home to the world's highest temperature.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm glad I missed that.
Yeah, right? I'm glad it was 100 years ago. Although it hit 127 in Death Valley, in July of this year.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, speaking of incredible, you have an incredible website. Tell folks where they can connect with you online.
I've created a website called pauldeannobooks.com, and it's twofold. One, it's a portal for people to find out more information about the Wow Weather series and the Wow Weather books. It's also given me an opportunity to expand beyond broadcast a little bit and begin to blog on some topics, and I'm writing on some topics that I'm writing not to a 28-year-old. I'm trying to write it so an 8-year-old can read it with his or her mom or dad or grandparents and say, you know what, I understand this. It's not too sciencey. There's science in there, but it's something that a child can understand as well. Some of the blog posts that I have on there talk about the fact that it does snow in Hawaii. Everybody thinks Hawaii, they think tropical palm trees, 85 degrees every day. It snows in one specific spot in Hawaii.
Wow.
Another one talks about Death Valley being the highest temperature ever. Another one talks about lightning. What place on Earth gets the most lightning? And then we talk about why. So just there's things like that. It kind of, something that goes beyond the book and something that it can be fun for a family to sit down for 5 or 10 minutes and just, have one of those cool weather whys answered for them.
Yeah. Well, I love this, and I think it's a perfect book to start a family talking about the weather, just helping them become more aware of what's going on around them, inspiring kids to get into the sciences and learn more about STEM. And I'm just looking at a blog right now, and after we finish, I'm going to be reading What is a Nor'easter, because that's something that's been hitting me for the rest of my life, for my entire life. So great. Well, the book is available at Amazon and I'm thinking Barnes & Noble, all the usual places.
You can find it on all the e-retailers. And I'm thankful that the publishing world is such right now to allow a person like me who has an idea to be able to take that idea and make it come to fruition in a not so lengthy amount of time. I think that this is a wonderful era for publishing, in that a lot of people out there who have ideas now have an opportunity through e-commerce to get those ideas into other people's hands.
Absolutely. Yes, we've talked a lot about this publishing and music. It's become much more democratic for folks, and people
very much so.
Yeah, people with a voice and an idea can get their ideas out there, and we also have a chance to support folks in getting their ideas out there. And we're happy you had a chance to come here and share your ideas with us. I love Wow Weather. Like I said before, my wife has already absconded with the book. It is going to be in her classroom, inspiring her second and third grade kids. I'm really excited about that. I'll be going in there and reading it with them. Paul Deanno, awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And can you come back when the new book comes out?
You're welcome, and absolutely thank you, Jed. It's a great podcast, and I'm thrilled to be part of it, and I'd love to be your guest again.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We have a great guest. She is the author of the Faye series. Her name is Simi Sire Brownstone. She will be here. You don't want to miss it. We mentioned earlier that Wow Weather by Paul Deanno is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. I'm really, really proud of this program. What we've done is we've gathered a team of educators, parents, and kids, and they evaluate books. If that team believes that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, then your book qualifies to be a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Now, with that status comes all sorts of great ways to help differentiate your book from the thousands and thousands of books that are released every week, probably every day. And you get some great seals of approval that you can place on your book. You can have it printed on future editions of your book. You can also have that image on your website. We can create a wonderful, really, really fun animated video announcement letting the world know all about your great achievement, and with some really fun music and fun animation. It's certainly a super, super way for you to let the world know about your great book, and we would love to help you. If you want some more information, you can find it at our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Readingwithyourkids.com. Want to thank Paul Deanno for joining us here today. We want to thank him for his support of the Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program. And, of course, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to read with your kids. I'll be looking for you the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.